Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today for the Alumni Network session titled Moving Forward, Doing Business in Extraordinary Times. My name is Imilade and I am an alumni of Greensprings. I graduated in 2005. A little bit about myself before I introduce the panelists for today. I am currently the Executive Secretary of non-profit organization called Nigeria Society for the Blind. And the organization is set up really to just rehabilitate and train people who go blind midlife. That is, people who were not born blind or due to illness, accidents, or eye diseases, they went blind. And our primary objective is to just empower them, give them academic opportunities, vocational training, and any support they need just to get back out there and take life and be independent while doing it. Moving on to introduce our panelists. First on the list of introduction is Mega Ufodum. Mega graduated from Greensprings as well in 2008. He attended Wycliffe College, UK for A-levels and graduated from the University of Brighton with a master's degree in pharmacy in 2014. Mega currently is the superintendent pharmacist and executive director of HICMEG Pharmacy Limited. Through his direction, HICMEG Pharma Limited has recently launched the first 2 lines of range of personal hygiene products under the brand name Medina Soap. Also, we have Ruby Igwe. She graduated in 2011. She is very impressive. She's a two-time published author, content creator, lawyer, and lecturer. She is the co-founder and executive director of the Lagos Film Academy and a social enterprise that provides training initiatives to creatives using non-traditional interdisciplinary educational methods and pedagogies. The organization has trained over 1,000 people with support from local and international stakeholders, such as PR giants like Black House Media, the British Council, and American nonprofit Global Philanthropy Alliance. Last but not least is Mrs. Ifeoluwa Salam, but she likes to be called Ife, so keep it, casual here. Ifeoluwa is a training consultant and a skin therapist with over 10 years experience. She is an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Personal Management. She has a management certificate from Harvard University, United States of America, on systems thinking, navigating through organizational complexities, and also on judgment and decision making. She also has a Master's of Art degree on International Business Management from Middlesex University, London, United Kingdom, and a Bachelor's of Science in Economics from Covenant University, Nigeria. So these are our panelists for today. Very impressive resume, and I'm sure we're going to have a very productive, very informative, and very impactful discussion. So let's get started. The range of questions we'll talk about quarantine period, talk about challenges that we face personally and business-wise. We're going to talk about the innovation that these different individuals have, taken to, I guess, for business sustainability. We're going to be talking about how their businesses are contributing to the communities that they're in, and we're just going to talk about the projection for their businesses and for themselves moving forward, I guess, hopefully post-COVID-19. So being in the pharmaceutical business, what would you say you've really had to tweak or struggled most with when it comes to adapting to the COVID-19 lockdown and restrictions and just the general craziness that is happening in the world?
For me or myself in my position in the company, it's been mostly, well, my role has to do a lot with strategizing and operations and regulatory activities. So for me to operate now, I have to constantly be talking to other people in my field. And so I speak to a lot with my friends like Afam, who's also a director at Ferguson Pharmaceuticals. So I speak to him, I speak to Samuel Barbara, who's an economist, just to get an idea of how other players around my age group are working. And then my boss also speaks to his peers, and then we all pull our ideas together and try and figure out a way for us to push forward. So I think what we've been able to do is look at what we were doing before, where we were targeting distributors for our market. So we're into soaps at the moment. We have a lot of pharmaceutical products that we're developing, but currently we have like bar soaps, medicated and beauty bar soaps that we were manufacturing here in Nigeria. So luckily we had those already on ground, and our previous marketing plan was to go for distributors and get distributors to then help us to circulate the products around Nigeria. But when the lockdown happened, of course, the distributors markets got affected. They were not operating for a while, and then it became one day on, one day off. So that tactic wasn't going to work in the same way. So while we're still working with them, we decided to go closer to the end users and market directly to the retailers, and use digital marketing as much as we can to create more awareness for our products. So where we were relying mostly on the distributors before, now we spread it to different sales channels or different marketing channels to increase the spread of the product. For the products that we were developing for importation, which were mostly pharmaceutical products, we've had to, we're still working on those, but because of the restrictions now with regulatory bodies, or the less activity with regulatory bodies, that progress has slowed down. And because importation, the cost of importation and everything associated with that has also changed, because ports are now not operating at the way they used to. Our focus or plan for importation in future is also adapting based on what is happening, and what we presume will be happening in future, as a general way of practicing here.
So how would you say the government has influenced your business during this time?
The government is doing a lot right now, from my perspective, to help out with SMEs, especially SMEs in the healthcare sector. So for a long while, Buhari's administration has been all about made in Nigeria products. So we are doing our best to do that. Currently, importation of drugs is about 70% of the Nigerian drug market. So we are trying to do more of made in Nigeria drugs and cosmetics, and the government is supporting that by through CBN, by they kind of released this loan application for like 300 million with only 5% interest, something like that. So it was like started specifically because of this situation now. So we've applied for that, and if we are able to get out of that loan, then we'll be able to do more of our activities here in Nigeria rather than relying on or planning towards importation. So we can find other manufacturers and partner with manufacturers here to produce our brand of products, and have that in the Nigerian market. So that's one great thing that's helped my sector of business.
Glad to hear that at least something is working out in the positive direction during this time. So I'll be coming back to you to ask you some more questions, but I'm going to move on to Ruby now. And Ruby is in a very creative industry, filmmaking. Hi, Ruby. Film production, theater, creativity, and all of that. And I think for me, reading online and just reading on different platforms about the international scene and how the whole COVID has disrupted production of movies, films, theater, and even just master classes for people who are just interested in learning more about the craft. I guess for me, I just want to know, how has COVID-19 impacted you? Because I can't even imagine having to watch like a theater production online. I feel like it will not really have the same feeling or the same impact that being with the creatives, being in a studio somewhere or in a theater somewhere or acting out scenes will have.
Hi everybody. It's been bad. It's been bad in terms of what the expectations were before. I mean, like you said, for example, you can't watch theater. You shouldn't. Well, you normally don't watch theater online. But at some point, the Phantom of the Opera released a live show, and a lot of people also released live shows across the world, and it actually wasn't that bad. But initially, everyone was obviously very dramatic in the creative industry.
Right.
Going on because a lot of productions had to stop. Me that I'm an ardent fan of Grey's Anatomy, we stopped like 4 episodes to go, and I'm like, what's going on? How I don't know if my people are alive, and bringing it home for most of our own productions, we couldn't do anything because obviously the government started off by saying that 50 people can't gather, and in a film set, which can get pretty robust, you have at least 55 rows, and then that goes all the way up sometimes to like 300, 400 people. So it really crippled our engine and operations process in the industry. And then with my business, my social enterprise rather, which focuses on training and different kinds of initiatives, the classes we wanted to have, and then the films and different like hands-on kinesthetic learning methods we wanted to use were all cut short because you really can't do that from behind the screen.
Okay, so what would you say you've done now for safety reasons? We have all these regulations and different measures that we have to, follow, and we all have to somehow adapt to the new normal. And hopefully, it won't last past 2020, but we don't know. So, what would you say you've done so far now in just making sure that if it did last past 2020, past December, you guys would still be able to manage and keep on, training people who are passionate about filmmaking, theater, and all of these things?
Like you said, new normals are definitely the order of the day. We've had to re-strategize completely. We started off by everybody just going home and trying to process what was going on because we had a slew. I can tell you, because this started like in March, right? The lockdown. I think we had 26 episodes to do in March. We had another 26 to do in May because I was going to last a month. And then we're going to do a YouTube series, then 26 episodes, a film, and then a short film. So from March to July, and it's a gig economy in the creative industry. So you can you're counting your money. You're like, okay, so that's that bag and that rent and that's my bills, and they tell you to go home. It was actually scary at some point, not just for us, but for our students, our crew. People were in limbo. And it's really hard to continue to create in that kind of environment when you're not even sure about the well-being of your family, your friends, because they're not even sure who is carrying this thing.
Yeah.
But eventually, I definitely had to. I think I can't exactly speak for my entire industry, but I know that there have been great leaps in trying to adapt to this situation. In New Zealand, for example, they shot an entire show remotely. Different people went to go and look at the locations, then different people went to go and film, then everybody was doing their own social.
Really? Wow.
How they managed to do it. So I was like, okay, we can do this. And then on Home Soil, Nkiru Njoko and Tunde Aladishe managed to do an entire web series, MTV Sugar Stay at Home, with all the people behind webcams. So I'm like, okay, we're making progress. And we as well at the Lagos Film Academy had a totally remote masterclass, which we had been against doing because it's really hard to teach people how to tell stories without being with them and hearing their creative process and trying to encourage them also to have the confidence to say their stories out loud. But it was a really insightful session. I remember it went on for 2 hours plus. No one wanted to leave. And it was from people all over the world, actually, people in London, Toronto. So it was interesting because we could reach people that ordinarily we wouldn't be able to because we'd be in Nigeria. So there have been pluses and minuses, but definitely I think new normal is those two words are really the order of the day.
Because I hear you saying, it's been tough, you're having to adjust, but then I also hear you saying you've been able to reach more people because now you're expanding your platform virtually and, opening up to other people from across the world. Would you say that this is a more preferable direction, being that you're able to reach more people, or would you say you prefer the one-on-ones and the intimacy of the pre-COVID lifestyle?
You know, when you started the question, I was like, look, I was about to say, is that a trick question? Because I was, why would anyone prefer this time? But I totally see where you're coming from. And I think it's a really good question, because what this pandemic has allowed me to do in my enterprise is to reevaluate a lot of strategies that I had before when we were pushed to a wall. And it's taught me to stay versatile and to have products and services that can adapt to any and everything, any disaster, anything at all. So we wanted that intimacy. And yes, it is good to have that when you're teaching and training. And there will always be room for that, I think. But we're also quite happy about the new frontier that we've opened up with seeing and embracing technology as a friend, as opposed to a barrier to creativity, and then also utilizing our digital media and working on, actually analyzing the data that we receive from people, as opposed to just saying, okay, it's information we have, let's move on to the creativity part of it. So I think as much as I would want to say pre-COVID, because that's, a structure that I'm also happy to, I'm excited by what this has turned into.
I know for many people, including myself and my organization, it was initially, we were in denial. We're like, nah, because our institution has a vocational training center and it's a living facility. So when the lockdown happened, all our students had to go back home. And but bearing in mind that they're visually impaired students, so we had to figure out a way to get them all back to their families safely. And now moving forward, we have to figure out what our continuity plan is, what are the things that we need to put in place to make sure that we are following regulations and just keeping our students safe. And, it's gotten us to think outside the box, and it's gotten us to, live the comfort of the normal, the daily routine, and just think broader and wider. The fact that we might not resume until September, online classes, WhatsApp groups and, email, virtual learning is something that we're not embracing. And I think that definitely opens us up to other places in the world and other people who might be interested in gaining some education or vocational skill that we need to think about. So for me, it's like it's bitter, but it's sweet at the same time. So I'll be back. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to move on very quickly to Ife Salam. Ife, as I mentioned, is the MD of Kills Nigeria. She is a skin therapist and has over 10 years of experience. For Ife, I think what I want to first ask is, as an MD of such a known brand, I think many people know Kills, the reputation of such a known brand. How has COVID-19 impacted your business in Nigeria when it comes to being able to still produce and being able to still give the kind of service, top class service that Kills is known for in this time? How have you been able to still maintain your customer care, customer service, and just your people, your loyal customers and people that patronize you? Have you been able to keep them engaged during this time?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the question. The COVID-19 affected basically all businesses, but what we did was during the lockdown, we still kept in touch with our customers. Even if we're physically not there at the store, we made sure we're in communication with customers. We had customers who still wanted to make orders. Of course, we couldn't attend to that, but we kept in touch with them, letting them know as soon as there's an ease, we would get back to them, which we did. So as soon as there was a bit of an ease in April, we started with deliveries strictly, but we couldn't attend to walk-in customers. So I think when it eased up a little bit more in May was when we started attending to walk-in customers. So we've gradually eased off the situation. But of course, we still take our precautions, the hand sanitizers, the face mask, and all of that. So we're just going with the flow with the new normal, basically.
Yeah. So how would you say that your approach now when it comes to being customer centric, how would you say that approach has changed from your previous approach? Because I know you talked about, calling your customers, staying in touch, making sure that they're informed on what's happening. Would you say that this was an approach that you had before, or it's more intensified now?
Okay, I would say it's about the same because we're very customer focused. We take customer service really seriously. So the only difference I would say is, of course, we're relating a different kind of information to our customers, based on what's happening right now. But in terms of the customer service, it's always been that way. We're always in touch with our customers. We always try to respond to inquiries pretty quickly. We're very customer focused, customer oriented. So it's about the same wavelength. It's just the fact that we have to relate different kinds of information right now, based on what the new approach is when you come into the store, so you don't get offended that you're handed over the hand sanitizer and all of that. So those are the only things we're trying to do right now. But in terms of customer service and giving customers, the products, we're about the same wavelength. Yeah.
In a business where people actually have to go in, touch products, maybe you might even have samples out for people to try. How would you say that has impacted your relationship in the store with your consumers? Have they been very receptive, or have they been resistant to this new normal?
I think everyone wants to be safe, so most people have been receptive. If not, everyone has been receptive, actually. Of course, some people are like, oh, I just use a hand sanitizer right now when I go down from my car, but we still insist on you using it physically when you're with us. Our products are, the way our store has always been, even pre-COVID, it's always been in a transparent glass shelf. So you can see the products, but you can't really touch it normally, even before COVID. So it's just the same way now. So we don't really have customers touching our products anyway. We just point to what you want, and we go from there. So I think the way our store has been arranged just went in line with the present situation. So,
but I know that Kiehl's is an international brand, and it's a pretty reputable brand and very pretty. I know it's not produced here in Nigeria. So how would you say that has influenced the pricing?
In regards to the pricing, we actually left the prices the same, and I will explain why. It was a really hard decision to make, but what I decided to do was focus more on sales turnover, because I didn't want to focus too much on profit. Of course, we're going to make profit, but the gross profit right now is obviously less than we were making pre-COVID, because the cost of importation is higher now. There's just a few shippers working at the moment. So, when there's oligopoly, you can understand why there are few people working. So whatever price they actually put out there, you grab it with both hands, basically, because you just want your products down here safe and sound. And, you have customers, obviously, that have started using our products and the brand for years. So when they want the products, oh, my face cream is finished, or my body lotion, I need that, so you can't keep making excuses. So we still have to import products at a higher price, but we're focusing more on sales turnover, and it's been working for us so far. As I always say, I'd rather make, this is just an illustration, I'd rather make ₦1 per day in 6 days than make ₦2 maybe in just 2 days, because you've made the price so high, and of course people are retracting or trying to decide whether to buy or not to buy, and that would reduce sales. But when you have the ₦6, you're able to put that back into the business, make more money off that ₦6, rather than using just ₦2 and putting just 2 naira back into the business. So
Mm-hmm.
we're all stuck in Nigeria right now. We've had a lot of customers. We've always had a lot of customers, but I think now, because a lot of people can't travel, the airports are still closed. So we've had a lot of patronage, and the sales turnover strategy has actually been working right now. I know that at the end of the year, the net profit, when we have to look at the net profit, it might not be as much as we made the previous year, but I would be glad that we've been able to, keep our customers happy and still make some profit. Another thing we've also tried to do is try to reduce other operating expenses. So
Okay.
that way you can reduce your expenses, still make a little bit more net profit, because the gross profit right now is already lesser because the cost of getting the goods down here is going to affect that. But the net profit, we're trying to reduce the operating expenses, so at least we can still leverage on other things. Yeah.
The thing about you three panelists, Mega, Ruby, and Ifes, that you're all so young and you're all driven and you're all, doing great things. Some might even say intimidating things, right? Because you all seem so certain about your purpose and where you're heading. What would you say your takeaway has been during this time? What has been the most striking thing for you and the most impactful thing you've learned, whether that's personally speaking or even just professionally speaking? What would you say has been the most groundbreaking realization for you? I leave it open, so anyone can start, can answer the question, or maybe I start with Defense since we just wrapped up. What would you say has been the most groundbreaking thing for you?
I'm not really someone who likes change. Like,
Okay.
that's my normal way of life. I've planned my next 10 years right now as I speak to you. I plan every little step of my life. So this just shook me a little bit because I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? But I found my foot, and I'm happy with the decision I made. I'm happy that I think I realized more that I could actually adapt to change more than I actually realized. I feel, because most times I'm always like, oh, I don't really like change. I don't really like change. But this has taught me that I could do well with change. So yeah, I think that's basically why I got out of that personally.
Okay. And would you apply that to your professional life as well? Would you say that change was also something, or is there something else professionally, given that you're in the skincare industry?
Oh
And
no, when it comes to work, I
yes.
adapt to change pretty quickly. I'm just talking about my personal life.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know that change comes with, when you're running a business, you obviously know that nothing is certain. I know you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, oh, we're all young and everything, but I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I'm very driven, and of course, I've worked for people in the past. I've worked in a bank. I've also worked in an insurance company out of the country. I've worked in a few places before I started a business. But while I was working and gaining experience, I always knew I was going to be a business person. Even while I was in university, I always wanted to sell something. I always wanted to like double the money my parents gave to me. So it's always been there, basically. So I'm just going at the path where I know that makes me happy. Yeah.
Okay, so personally, I would say the mind, just making sure your mind is balanced. There's lots. This whole period has been, I would say, traumatizing for a lot of people, and if you're not able to manage what you take in, that's like mentally speaking, then it could break some people, and I know that I think when everything started, when we were not like mentally busy, I know I was having like nightmares every night. I think a lot of people in the world are having this. We're having like bad dreams and stuff, and you end up, when you're not able to achieve the things you had set out to achieve, you get like disappointed with yourself. So just doing things to make sure that your mind is well taken care of. That's like your mental state is well taken care of. I think that's very good. And then it kind of shifts over to the business part of things. So of course your business is not going as planned because the world is going the way it is. So you kind of need some support, and you realize that everybody's going through that thing. So you having a good support system, personally and in business is great. So which is why I had like great people around me that I could talk to that were going through some stuff, and we all could like console each other about the like how we're not able to meet our targets, we're not able to do this and that to achieve the breakthrough in the market that we're trying to achieve. Like our containers are not landing, our business partners are not able to do what they intend to do. So I was able to speak to the Agnesia people, the people over at Danta Farm, that's Samuel Waber's farm, and just realize that, okay, I'm not in this alone, but through speaking to this support system, I was able to like figure out some way of like managing through to the next step.
Of having a good support system is definitely important when it comes to being business savvy, as well as staying mentally stable. What about you, Ruby? What would you say has been the most impactful thing you've gained?
I think I had to realize that time can be a friend or an enemy. And I had to learn to choose to make the most of this borrowed time. Initially, I was complaining to some of my other friends who still had deadlines, because they were still on productions, but then they weren't on sets, but they still had to write or something. And I'm like, this is the summer we didn't ask for, but we still have work. Like, what is this? What's going on? I'm like, Mega, I actually was on a sabbatical and I came back in February. So I was ready. Like I was like, okay, let's go. Like I had my plans. I had a system going, and then this something happened. So I had to pause where I had just had to stop previously. So I had to learn that look, time is a friend or an enemy, and I decided to make it my friend. I decided to just throw myself into different things, re-strategize, and just stay open to all sorts of possibilities. And I'm happy. It's not some sort of happily ever after story though, because there's still targets that have not been met. There's still plans that didn't go through. But I'm just learning, like Ife said, to go with the flow and be a bit more adaptable to change.
I would say for me, I'm not exactly extroverted, even though my job is extremely extroverted, right? And so when the lockdown happened, I was conflicted. I was happy that I wasn't talking to as many people as I would normally, but then also you mentioned, Ruby, just being worried about your family's safety, your safety, and watching the news. And it's not just COVID happening; it's other things happening in the world. And it can be overwhelming and mentally draining. And so for me, I would say that I became a recluse. I know it's a strong word, but like I just cut off from everyone. I wasn't on social media. I wasn't doing anything. Like if you didn't call me, you would not hear from me. I was just in a very weird state, and it took me a while to come out of it. And I kept wondering, like, why? Like, why am I in such a funk? But then I realized that as much as, yes, we might not all have the same temperament, or we might not all be extroverted by nature, it's the situation is a very disheartening situation when you're looking at the news and seeing how many people are dying, and even just reading about people that have died recently, from COVID, Dan Foster, for example. It's like just so crazy, and it's depressing. And I think for me, I came to the realization that it's okay to feel unbalanced. It's okay, but the thing is, you can't stay there, right? You need to be able to shake it off and take it a day at a time, and just work through every day and live each moment as it comes. And that's difficult for someone like me. Like Ife said, I like to plan my life. I like to know exactly what my next move is going to be. And not being able to know that is crazy to me. I think I adapt well to change, but I don't like sudden change. I like change that I can control, which isn't really change if you think about it, right? So yeah, so I think just talking to you three, I think it's clear to see that you all are making the strides that are necessary, and you're doing what is necessary for your businesses to thrive during this COVID time. And you're also doing things that are going to be impactful and useful even post COVID. And I think it's really admirable. What advice do you have for anyone listening that is a business owner or that is thinking of starting a business? How do you suggest that they overcome this little bump in the road and get back to business as usual, even if it's not exactly the normal of pre-COVID? So Ruby, I will start with you.
Okay. I think what we've all been saying probably be to just stay as versatile as possible, stay open, be vulnerable, allow yourself and your business, as such, to know when you don't know. I have an amazing creative circle around me, and I've been able to utilize that. But the only way I've been able to do that is by picking up my phone and saying, "Hi, okay, so this thing is not working the way I want to do. This is what I want to do, and this is what I'm trying to do, and it's not working." And they're like, "Oh, give me 1 second." Call another person, or they help me out. And then they call as well, and they're like, "Oh, I've written this thing. What do you think?" And I'm like, "No, it's not. Let's go for that." Or, "Yes, wow, send it now. Why haven't you sent it now? Why haven't you sent it?" So just having that support system, together you go far, and then together you staying versatile and staying vulnerable are the two things I would say.
Okay, so what I think I've learned, or what I would advise now, is to manage a bit of self-sufficiency where you're not relying on, well, for my area of practice where we do a lot of importation, um, we're trying to do more made in Nigeria products. So my plan in future is not to rely on that we can bring from outside of Nigeria, but products that we can make in Nigeria, be it, herbal products or cosmetics, nutritional supplements, pharmaceutical products. We are increasing our our goal or our aim to make more of that in Nigeria, because when the chips are down, CBN or the exchange rates may not be in your favor. So you have to try and do
Reach.
what is good. You have to do what is good for the country, and that will ultimately be good for yourself as a business person within the country, and that is to do more for Nigeria.
I would just say anyone who is trying to get into a business, already has a business and trying to forge ahead, I just feel you shouldn't be too hard on yourself. COVID affected everyone, even the biggest brands in the world. So you should be open to change, and you can re-strategize, but don't be too hard on yourself, and just stay positive, because a positive mind brings positive things.
COVID-19 pandemic/lockdown is a reflection of future of work. How can business owners position themselves ahead for the future?
I would just say the internet is like your workplace. You can use the internet to your advantage. People sit at home and make money while sitting at home. There's a lot of social media apps you can go on, and you make money while you're there. I feel you should just be more versatile. If you're able to also get a website, I don't know what business that person is into. If it's something you could introduce a website to, then you can go ahead with that. Do not put too much attention on the physical workspace anymore, because that's what a lot of us did, and found ourselves in this situation. Act like you're not able to see people for the next 6 months and decide based on that. If you're not able to have contact to anyone for 6 months, how would your business thrive? If it's based on probably Instagram or websites or Facebook or Twitter, there's so many things people do now. So you can just be more versatile in using the internet workspace.
What are your projections for the future?
We've done a lot more digital marketing, trying to develop our digital presence, and that has already started giving us results. So uh, previously we had an expansion plan. We already like got um, uh, a space in Abuja to expand up to Abuja, but then the lockdown happened. So we had to divert some of the funds that we're going to do towards the digital aspect of the marketing, and that's given us some results. So the plans that we've had is increasing digital presence and also increasing our strategic partnerships with Nigerian brands and Nigerian manufacturers, so that we won't be in a situation in future where importation is hindered by some, extreme case, and then we won't be able to do or supply our products because of any at a reasonable price, I must add, because the competition in the market is quite a lot for pharmaceuticals, so you have to always give them a reasonable price that you can work with. So partner with local brands or local manufacturers and increasing the digital presence.
Okay. Ruby?
Focusing a lot on building my community. Well, not building my community. We have access to over 50,000 people, but I want to now dig deep, because I don't want to just send, emails or try and reach people on social media. Now they're literally the lifeblood of my enterprise, because they're the people that I'm trying to target and impact. So my focus now is just to go, trench myself into getting to know them, hopefully each and every one of them between myself and my staff, and get to follow them and help them along on their creative journey, because that's what we're trying to do, build infrastructure in the African creative industries. So that's my focus. And you see, it doesn't really require COVID to be done or not done. I'm just going to, that's where I'm going to park myself for the rest of the year, and then I'll reevaluate and keep going.
Mega, a question came in for you. And the question is talking about the exchange rate from the market and how this has affected your pricing of your products, and how this has either negatively or positively impacted your customers. Being that if you've increased your pricing, how have your customers felt about that? And if the prices have stayed the same, I guess they would be satisfied. So,
Okay.
any words?
Okay, so exchange rate has gone up, and for the products are made in Nigeria. So, well, everything has gone up, to be honest, because the raw materials, some of them are actually brought in, and that of course has gone up. Then the processing of these raw materials, like for example, for the soap, we need to have like a soap mix, and that's process requires like palm oil and coconut oil. Yeah, so to get all of that from when the borders are closed, even if it's just from Ghana, it has been like more difficult. So the rates of everything has gone up. But luckily, we had our stock before the lockdown, so we already had our cost price. The problem is when we're planning for future, what the normal thing would have been to do is to increase the price because we're planning for the next rate. But unfortunately, our product is still new in the market, so we can't really play the price game. So what we decided to do is maintain our price. Well, we have two products. We have to maintain the price, one, and then the other one, we assume that for equivalent products, everybody else is going to increase the price. But as we're still introducing the products, we're just going to either keep it the same or drop it, just so that our turnover would increase on that product. So that's what we've done in this instance. And then, but when it comes to our next production, then we will see what is happening by that time. But we haven't scheduled our next production yet. So we're waiting to see how COVID will change in the next couple of months before we schedule it. But I think it just depends on your marketing strategy. I think, like similar to what Ife was saying, if you want to go for a turnover based strategy or a profit margin based strategy. So, regarding the exchange rate, we just had to deal with it. We had to take the L this time and, deal with whatever can come out of that margin.
Okay, wow. I feel like I just went to like a master class. I've learned so much from you three. Um, so before we wrap up, I just wanted to get your advice. So the 2020 graduating class, what do you advise them as they go into the world? Even though this is not the world that we all planned, it's a different kind of world, but they could still use some advice. Actually, I think they especially need advice during these uncertain times.
I think it would be just not to be too scared about what's going on, and to try very hard to stay alert and adapt. It's not the I think it's unfortunate that their graduation is coming along around this time, because graduating from high school, usually you're ready to take on the world, and then pardon?
I said, yeah, prom and all that. Like, what?
Yeah, prom. You're ready to take on the world, and everything feels good, and then you have summer, and then it's okay. There's momentum, and then for a bit you're like, okay, so real life is actually very boring. So now having to live COVID-19 type thing isn't any better. So that's why I would just tell them to stay alert and stay positive and not be too scared about it. They'll be fine. They will still be fine. Last. And they should just keep their heads up.
I wish all of them well, and I would just tell them to work hard, but don't be too hard on yourself. For those that want to be entrepreneurs, if you have an opportunity to work with other companies in the time being, I think you should take that as a good opportunity. Don't be too complacent and think, oh, you're not going with the plan you set out for yourself, because the experience you're going to get out of that is never ever going to be a waste. You will definitely need that even when you're setting up your own business or working for yourself. So take a step at a time and be prayerful, and everything will work out fine.
Okay. And Mega,
Uh,
do you
I'm
have any
I'm
advice?
I'm not around many kids these days, so I'm not really sure what
Okay,
best
Uncle
thing to
Mega.
say. But I'll say um, right now, like it's very apparent that it's a cold world outside. So anyone that is graduating now just knows they should keep it in mind that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to, there's no there's a safety net, but it's like the competition is much. The working conditions, like unemployment and everything, is going to be something you have to battle with. So you have to go there and you have to be smart. You have to have a smart plan going into the to the next level of education and eventually into the workforce. So while you want to work hard and play balanced, have a balanced work and the play life, you just want to have a focus as well, because if you go through all of this without a focus, you might end up coming out and you still don't know who you are. So use the next steps, whether it's A levels or IB foundation, use that time to explore what is next, and then use your university to find yourself while developing your higher education, but then come out with some sort of plan, some sort of direction, because you don't want to leave university and come back and still, okay, because this is Nigeria, you have your parents' house to live in, but yeah, trust me, I came back to Nigeria, and after 1 year I had to leave my parents' house because I have lived on my own. You have to become independent, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So look, I think you should look towards some independence once you get past this stage.
Okay. And I would just say, don't be hard on yourself. I'm telling you, I'm still figuring things out, and this is 15 years later. It's you have all these plans and life, you're just so confident, and it's great, it's great because you're so sure about life and all these different things, and you have your whole life mapped out. But like, it seldom happens the way we planned it. Seldom. Some people, are lucky enough where everything works out as planned. But for most people like myself, you know, I've had to adapt, I've had to evolve, I had to change. I'm even thinking of re-strategizing and changing my life plan right now. So I would say just be open, be humble, be fluid, and there's, you know, advice, you know, finding someone or people who you can ask for advice is very important. Being like a very strong, stable community so that you don't lose yourself in this crazy world that we're in. But above all, I would say just love yourself and be patient with yourself, because nobody knows anything. When like nobody's perfect, you know. I guess the older you get, the more you realize that everyone is just winging it and just trying to figure out the best way forward for themselves. So that would be my own advice. And so this wraps up our little session. Thank you so much, Ruby, Ife, and Mega for joining us. And for everyone present here, I'm so grateful that you all tuned in. And hopefully this can be something that we do, you know, talking about different topics and just continue to build on our community. And with that being said, thank you all for listening to my voice for the past 1 hour, 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.